number here. So the amount of food that we distribute continues to grow every single year. At Loaves and Fishes alone, $600,000 worth of food is distributed annually through our warehouse. $600,000. And yet the need is not going away, it's growing and it's increasing. The other problem with food pantries, there's been an unintentional consequence that has happened. And I am sad to say this, there's a tension that kind of sometimes exists between clients and the volunteers and the staff that are helping them. Because many of the clients that we serve, it's no longer temporary, it's now long-term. I was surprised at the statistic that Tommy showed that it was 3.5 years, because I think that what we would say it would be many years. It would be more than 3.5 years. In fact, I think what we would say is we are seeing generations. In fact, what I would say, just in my 12 years at Loaves and Fishes, I have seen the second generation now being raised up. Mom and Dad used our shelter or used our food pantry, and now that little girl was maybe 3 years old, or maybe I shouldn't say that, she's probably 12 years old, and now she's 24, and now she's coming to our food pantry with her children. So what has happened is that this tension exists between clients and the food pantries. And it's very frustrating, I think, for clients to come to our shop and our food pantry is bare. And I know that we are not alone. I think I can speak for most of the food pantries in our community. And so you have someone that comes and they're driving from all over Fremont County, several miles away. And they're coming into our food pantry and there's nothing for us to get them. And they were expecting something to be there because we have been providing them food for many, many years. And this year we've really seen an impact in the amount of food that it's just going, it's going faster than what we're even able to meet the need. And so they get frustrated, our families that we serve, and they take it out on the staff, and they take it out on the volunteers, and they're angry because it's our responsibility to feed. It's our responsibility to provide them with food. And so we stand back, and as much as we want our hearts to be soft, and as much as we want to show compassion, there are times when I'm like, get real, okay? I can't do this, I can't meet your need. There's gotta be another solution. And so, there's a tension that goes back and forth. And I would say collectively the food pantries for the last several years have been working together trying to resolve this tension and try to look for better solutions. But here's the big deal here. For years, I think our community, and this is again Dee Dee's perspective, but I think our community has looked at food pantries as being the gap filler. That we know that there are homeless people, we know that there are low-income families, we know that there is this and that, and we have wanted the food pantries to be that gap filler. The reality is we are not that gap filler. We can never be that gap filler. The solution to solving our hunger issue in our community is not for food pantries to have more food. We've proven that that doesn't work. The solution is bigger than that. And it requires more than just food pantry individuals to come together and find out what those solutions are. So, I believe that, and what I say is, most of you would already agree with this, is I believe that hunger and food insecurity has moved from being a temporary to now a chronic systemic issue. We know that hunger is a symptom of poverty. Among the root causes of poverty is income inequality, lack of affordable housing, high cost of living, and the list could go on and on and on. We heard some of the stories up here, medical expenses. Those all play a part of that. This is a very real issue. My challenge, I guess, to you guys is that as organizations, as advocates, and individuals who are committed to ending hunger, we must work at the source of the problem while helping to eliminate the results of the symptoms. So food pantries aren't necessarily going to go away, because we're going to need that. But again, that's not the solution. There's a bigger issue here that needs to be addressed. And we need, as a community, to solve this. We are so fortunate to live in Fremont County. For those of you that have never maybe lived in other communities, you may not realize it. You may just take things for granted. But for those of us who've actually done a little bit of traveling and lived in other communities, we live in an amazing community. And I say that not just because it's beautiful and not just because we have great weather and we have the best people in the United States, but I say that because agencies, nonprofit, faith-based, our government officials, we all know one another. At one of our summit meetings, one of the pastors shared that he had a lunch with one of the commissioners. And I'm like, where in another community is that possible? Where you can just call someone, the mayor, and say, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, can we do lunch? And Mr. Mayor is going to say, yeah, let's do lunch. It doesn't happen frequently. People here know one another. While we're 40,000, people here generally know one another, or they're related in some way to one another. And so the problem actually can be solvable if we start working together. One of the things that I wanted to mention was, I mentioned that there are 40,000 people that live in Fremont County, 46 if you throw in the inmates, so let's remove them and we have 40,000. And this map up here, we went to 5 different food pantries and we got their client list. And what we did was we consolidated the client list and we removed all the duplications, because we know, all the food pantries know, and you learned today, is that many of the people that come to our pantry go to other pantries. And we are absolutely okay about that, because our desire is to fill a need. But what's interesting is that once we removed all the duplications, there were around 5,100, just under 5,200 families that are being served in these 5 food pantries in Fremont County. That's 13%. 13% of the population of Fremont County is getting food from the food pantry. And Tommy talked about the invisible person, and I think in Fremont County, in bigger cities, we would say that an invisible person is a person who's homeless, the person that maybe sleeps underneath the bridge, maybe the person that holds a sign. I don't know if we would say that is true here in Cañon City, only because it's new to us. It seems like in the last 2 or 3 years, we have seen an increase in the number of people holding a sign, the people asking for money. It used to just be at Walmart. It's kind of now over at City Market. It's now on street corners and all that kind of stuff. So for us, it's not invisible because we're seeing it. It's like, oh, it's almost like, oh my gosh, there's another one, so it's not invisible. But who the invisible people are what Stacy mentioned today, the people in the food stamp, the folks that maybe make $20 too much and they're not able to get food stamps. They're the ones that have a full-time job, and chances are they're making more than minimum wage. They're maybe making 12 bucks an hour. They're generally a family of 3 or more. They have a house. Some of them are even purchasing a house. They have a car. They're paying their utilities. They're doing all those things. But yet, inside the home, they're having to, mom and dads are not able to eat because they're worried about feeding their children. There's a lot of those. I didn't realize how many of those there actually were. And I just remember last week having this conversation with this woman who's a single mom who has 2 children, who's a remarkable woman, who's a thrifty, she saves, she does all those things that she's supposed to be doing. She has a halfway paying good job. And she told me, she said, Dee Dee, I gotta get a part-time job. So here's this single mom who already is stretched thin, just being both parents to her children, is now having to go out and get a part-time job because she can't afford to feed her kids. And the thing is she's not looking at trying to make another $1,000. She really only needs $200 to make her food budget. And I'm like, $200 is all you need to make your food budget? And she's like, yeah, I've done everything I can, and this is what I have to do. And so we all know, because many of us have worked with families, and we all know that families are important and all that kind of stuff. And when you move mom out of the house and she's having to spend even less time with her kids, so it's just this ripple effect that really can happen. And so the desire would be to try to end that. And so, I know, I've talked a lot of things here, and again, I appreciate you listening to me. But again, I go back to, this is something truly that we can solve ourselves. This is not something, I love my government, but I don't believe I want my government to come and tell me this is how I want it to be done. I want us to come up with a solution. We know what's best for our community. And so let's get together and let's figure this out, because we can do this. This is not rocket science, and I know there's probably some rocket scientists out here in this audience. Yes, there is. But we can figure this out, and we can do it together. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Judy. I just want to recognize, again, just as our testimonies were transparent and authentic, I'm sure it wasn't easy for Dee Dee to talk about the emotional aspect of being a service provider. So thank you for being transparent and authentic. Our next speaker works for the RE1 school district. You probably all know her. She has done some amazing things for the nutrition program in RE1. I can attest to that because Roger, my son over there, is one of 2 kids that are enrolled in the schools here. So I'd like to introduce Paula Boozer, who's involved with the school nutrition program in RE1.
I might do better if I take this off.
Okay, yeah, do whatever you like.
I might have a PowerPoint coming up, possibly. And Dee Dee's a tough act to follow. I mean, I thought I had passion for what I do. I think she has me beat on that. But so many things she said are so true. The problem is not going away, and you're going to see some statistics from the school district here in a minute that will show you how the problem continues to grow. And she's right, it's generational, as we call it. It's hard for people to break the chain, to get out of that chain of hunger, and whether it's hunger or safety or not feeling well. And I came back. I'm really going to speak from experience today and from passion. I mean, I worked in the school district in the nutrition area for about 14 years. My previous 20 years of experience was really just in food, in corporate dining. So I've been in food a long time. There's been nothing more satisfying than being with food and children at the same time. I also taught preschool here in Fremont County for a while before the school district. And so I think I can speak probably from a little different lens. I wasn't here earlier because we were doing some safety drills with the school district and I was in charge of those. But I was here for 11 years, left for about 1.5 years, came back. I can affirm what Dee Dee said also, and if you leave Fremont County for a while, all you want to do is come back. You really affirmed the great place we do live. And in my new role, my title is Director of Support Services. And so I oversee nutrition, wellness, and safety. And part of when Tommy came to ask me to speak, he said, can you talk a little bit about the collateral damage of food insecurity? And that's what I'm going to talk about for just a few minutes today. I see that in all 3 of those areas. I see those kids that they come to school and they're hungry. They also don't feel good and they don't feel safe. And so really, there's really a blend in the 3 areas that I do oversee currently. But I want to just start with, this is the Cañon City Schools, so at-risk students, or what we call, these are the students who qualify for free and reduced meals. The 10-year trend. So in 04-05, 36% of our students, or 1,260 of them, qualified for free and reduced meals. What that means is that they're living at or below 130 to 185% of poverty. They don't have to qualify. I think our income guidelines are a little more generous than food stamps. you still can qualify for free and reduced meals even if you're not on food stamps, and I think people misunderstand that. They think, well, if I don't have food stamps, I have to pay full price for my meals at school. But you can see just over the years how it's increased, and now this is our district aggregate number. So 57% of our children, or 2,050 of them, qualify for free and reduced meals, so they're what we call at-risk students. And I think they're called at-risk because they are at risk for more than just hunger. We have schools in of themselves, 2 schools, over 70% of the children that go to that school every day qualify for free and reduced meals. That's just been in the last couple years that we've gotten that high. Every school in our district, with the exception of one, over half the kids qualify for free and reduced meals. And the only school that does not is the high school. So I can guarantee you over half those kids qualify. It's just when they get to that point, sometimes the parents will quit completing the paperwork, or there's also a pride issue where we don't want to qualify. We don't want to fill out this applications. We don't want to be one of them. And I will tell you, just speaking from my experience, nobody's one of them. This is a very, very confidential program. I find that the kids might tell people that they qualify for free meals, but they don't hear from adults or the school district. So I just think that, again, I don't know what statistics maybe you saw earlier in the day because I wasn't here, but I think that tells the story and paints a picture of kind of what Dee Dee was talking about. And I can also tell you, those schools that are 70% free and reduced have the most safety issues, have the most kids going to the nurse, have the most behavior issues, have the lowest academic performance. So there's a lot of collateral damage when it comes to children that are hungry. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that on my next slide. So if you want to go to that one, I would appreciate it. Instead of me using the clicker, I don't have enough hands. So this is some of this I looked up, and some of it I just know from what I do. But 90% of food insecure families are likely to have fair to poor health ratings. Probably something you already talked about this morning. But increased hospitalizations, they have developmental problems. You know, their bones, they're not getting the calcium they need. They're not getting the nutrition they need. They're being, as it says at the bottom, they're overfed, but they're undernourished. And I think that is the point to make. They may be eating a lot of ramen noodles and macaroni and cheese, but they're not nutrient-dense foods. I just read a statistic on the way here today. Well, after I got in the parking lot, I don't read my phone when I'm driving. After I got in the parking lot. A third of American children eat fast food every day. That's not nutrient-dense food. It's cheap food. You can buy cheap food. It's not always cheap, but it's getting more expensive. But you know, those dollar menus, parents can afford that. That's what I mean by overfed but undernourished. Increased illnesses, we see, you know, I see the behavior logs, I see the logs for children to go to the school nurse. Normally it's those food insecure kids, the kids that are always hungry. Low academic performance and dropout rate, along with unskilled labor and lower wages. Those kind of go hand in hand. And I knew about the low academic performance and dropout rate. I didn't realize how it really related to the unskilled labor and the lower wages. And I don't have the statistics in my head, but it's talking about lifetime earnings. I actually may have that on the next slide, but their lifetime earnings are decreased by hundreds of thousands of dollars because of their poor academic performance when they were in school because they were hungry and couldn't focus. So it's not just about, you know, it's not a temporary problem. It's a problem that can follow them throughout their lifetime because all of a sudden they didn't have the grades to get in college. They take a minimum wage job, and it follows them throughout their life. And they struggle to make it, and that's how that generational piece continues. And then the health problems continue into adulthood. And believe it or not, some of those health problems are obesity. There are food, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean someone's walking around underweight. It's that piece of being overfed but undernourished that many people that are food insecure actually have obesity issues also and weight issues. So I thought that was very eye-opening to me on some of those pieces. If you would go ahead and go to the next slide for me, I'd appreciate it. And then this is, again, this might have been things you talked about. This is just the cost. And I think the one that really came up to me was that last one, that $167 billion is the annual cost due to loss of productivity, illnesses, healthcare, poor education, you know, cost of charity to feed families, cost of that $600,000 worth of food. So it's just very widespread. It's not just about getting the right food on the table. It's about all of these things. The lower there's the piece I talked about, the $19 billion in lost lifetime wages, not by one person, but I think it was over a number of people over a period of years. But so I think that highlights. I think that's some powerful information for us to see and to know. And then the next slide, I really just wanted to cover what you guys know what the assistance is out there. This is just some of the main ones that I'm aware of that I deal with within the school district. And on the SNAP, what used to be called food stamps, 14%. So you said 13% of people in Fremont County go to food pantries, right? So you said something like that. And so when you said that, it resonated with me that 14% of Americans are on food stamps. So we're pretty much, we're right in there where, the average is. At school, I'm going to talk about that a little bit in the next slide. We offer school breakfast and lunch programs, of course, either free or at a reduced rate. And then we also have, I think, other programs in the school that can help with this issue that people may not be aware of. And if we can get that word out and people can start actually utilizing those services, I think we can, help maybe move this initiative forward also. Then, of course, we have the Women, Infants, and Children, the WIC program, which I became familiar with when I taught preschool several years ago. So those are three of the main pieces of assistance that I'm aware of here in Fremont County and actually nationwide. And then on my final slide, I just want to talk about the school district and what we have done and what we can do to hopefully help with this program. We have the free and reduced meals. So as I mentioned, it's just an income. It's not about, I don't qualify for food stamps, I got to pay for meals. I encourage anybody who thinks they might qualify to apply. It doesn't cost anything to apply. If they do, they receive breakfast and lunch free, 2 meals a day free at school every day. That's 182 days a year. So we really try to promote that program not as a revenue generator for the school district, but as a service that we can provide to our families within this community. Direct certification is another piece. That is what that is every month our the state level Department of Education pulls a file from the Department of Human Services, and any child or family on that list that qualifies for food stamps is automatically uploaded into our system, and then they do qualify for free reduced meals without even having to apply. So we're really capturing, and currently in the school district, I believe we're at about 800 children that are on our direct certification list. So that's just a way that those people that may not have the resources to drive to the school and fill out an application or to have a computer to download one, they automatically will get free meals once we approve that process. We have a Provision 2 breakfast program. That's at a couple of our school districts, at our schools, Harrison and CES to be exact. Why isn't it in every school? It's like every government program. It's very heavily regulated and there's very strict requirements to it. But those 2 schools, every child, regardless of income, eat for free. Lunch is free. If Follow Boozer's children go to Harrison or CES, they're going to get free breakfast. And so I'd like to expand that into more schools. I'd really like to look at what's on our long-term radar is universal free breakfast, because we know that if children start out with a good breakfast, that's going to help a lot of those other things that happen throughout the school day. Our summer food service program has absolutely grown. So 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago, our superintendent came to me and said, Paula, what can we do with 100 kids in the summer? And I said, I know about a program. And so we started it, and so now we've served as many as 450 in a day. This summer we served over 16,000 free meals from Cañon City High School. So that helps fill that gap between the last day of school and the first day of school the next year. And it's the whole community. It's not just for those at-risk students. So that's another program that will continue to grow. We have a fresh fruit and vegetable program at our Washington school. One of the schools is over 75% at-risk students at Washington Elementary. It's a grant we received. Every day they get a snack of a fresh fruit or vegetable. The purpose of the program is to give them access to those foods, foods that they normally might not get at home, because even though food stamps may close a gap, it's hard to eat well on a small budget, and I think Dee Dee talked about that in depth. So that's a great program. We just hope that one kid will see a cantaloupe and they'll go to school or go to the grocery store with their mom and say, hey, I had that at school, could you buy me one? That's our hope. Weekend backpack program, which I think you did you mention that there's, I haven't been involved in that, but I know that's something that's happening around Washington School. And then this is indirect, but it's fee waivers. So those at-risk students receive waivers on athletic fees, test fees, those things that kids have to pay for. Those families actually can either have a reduced or pay no money to participate. So that's our way of trying to get some of those at-risk students involved in the school district, as well as cost savings for the parents that maybe they can put into their food budget. So, and I'm always looking for other ways. I mean, I'll die trying to continue to provide the services we can through the school district. It's a great way to reach a lot of children, and it's just an easy way to quickly. I mean, I never realized how many requests we get for people to advertise in our schools, and those things go across my desk first. So I'm very selective. If it's something that's going to benefit students, I'm probably going to put it out there. If it's something that's just going to benefit a business, I'm probably not. But we'll continue to grow that list as we can. We just yesterday, I just got word a grant that I applied for in June. We received a grant for $161,000 to upgrade our kitchens so that we can implement more scratch cooking and healthier food at our kitchen. So so I'll never quit trying to find those little things that will continue to make that difference. Because this didn't happen overnight, we won't cure it overnight, but if we all get together and make little steps and little strides, I think we can, at least put a dent in the issue and create some awareness. So thank you for having me here today.
Why does Cañon City School District not require junior high school kids to take one semester of home economics to learn how to cook?
I'm not an educator, but I can give you the global answer to that. Testing. You've heard about I'm sure you've all read about the increased required numbers of tests that have to happen in schools. There is just, and some of those things are falling through the cracks because of the federal and the state government that are requiring us to just test these kids in so many different areas. And I think the way we address that is get to our legislature and start pounding on their doors and saying we need to change this curriculum and change the direction that they're wanting us to go, so we can get. I think the same thing about finance. We need to teach kids how to balance checkbooks and how to know what a bank account is and know what a credit card is, and that's another thing I advocate for every day. And be overseeing the wellness piece of our program. We do a lot, even though they don't teach at home economics, we do a lot of wellness education and health education in other forms through grant funding and things, but it's not generally part of the curriculum, just whatever we can fit it in, but hopefully one day we'll get it back there. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you just answer one question for me? In our task force, when we're meeting, this is anecdotal on our part, but maybe you could verify it or destroy the myth. Excuse me. Personally, sometimes I think that the free breakfast program and the reduced and free lunch is probably their best meal during the day for these kids. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's some kids, it's their only meal.
Right.
Absolutely true, yes.
Okay, Thank you. Okay, so I really want to thank all the speakers. I think that hopefully you have gained a little bit of insight. So I'm going to, Josh, if you can throw up mine. Okay, so, and I'm going to kind of catch up a little bit on time. I really wanted to provide people with time to speak and flesh out their stories. So we talked about the invisible, made visible. One thing that, when I was at the 6:30 banquet that we have been mentioning, when I heard the stats, I just sat there with a pen and just figured it out based on the numbers that Dee Dee was providing at that event. And the identified food insecure, the numbers that she presented, I extrapolated that out, where if everybody got $6.30 for those that are in need, that ended up being $54 million. I mean, that's a ton of money. But I think creatively we can get around that. Okay, so Harry Potter's visibility cloak must be removed. Okay, so the invisible, they can be your friends. You've heard some talk about that. They can be your neighbors, your co-workers. You may not know that they're in this situation. Like it was said, they could be driving a car, they could own a home. A classmate, a daily acquaintance. You see them every day, all around you, and they're silently suffering. We need to alleviate that. Now, one of the things that impacted me about what Dee Dee was saying is that despite the challenges that she was talking about, her optimism is wonderful. Her vision that it is a problem that has a solution. And as Ray testified today, it could be any one of us tomorrow. We could have a catastrophic health event, and we could be placed in that situation under that cloak of invisibility. So, where are we going from here? Well, I look at this problem as being like an octopus in our community. Its tentacles, the food insecurity problem, all the collateral effects that you heard, and there are more, has a pervasive grip upon our community. And so, we looked at all these things, and it's not just a hunger problem, it's a life problem. Okay, the food insecure have many challenges, and we talked about those things that we didn't normally think about. Such as how to prepare food, finding transportation, building relationships, balancing nutrition and cost. Okay, so we have now concluded the awareness part of it. I hope that I didn't overwhelm you with a lot of information. To a certain degree, I kind of wanted to. So where do we go from here? So we're now going into the call of action part.